Hello, good evening. Well, 5:17 here in Tokyo, and I thought I'd come on. I'm quite relaxed. Just looking at myself, I look a bit tired, but actually I feel quite relaxed. Got my flame on, that's why as well. Light's a bit bright. I'll turn that down in a moment and get myself all, calm and relaxed. I was meant to have a call now with a chap, but he did a no-show despite emails not so long ago from him, so he gets rejected. No reschedule allowed. You have to be harsh sometimes. If people take a time from you and deny a time for someone else to take action with you. Sorry, I think when you start to be merciless with your time, you get yourself in a much better position for serving more people. It's as simple as that. I wanted to talk about profit paralysis and what exactly that means. And it came from a term that in the recruiting business where we called it placement paralysis. And it's true, I think, for every kind of salesperson. And the fact is, if you're an entrepreneur, you've decided to be a full-time salesperson and work your ass off and go through all those hardships. And I love a quote that Mark von Musa, my mentor and just awesome dude, he said, entrepreneurship is we're the only people that will work 16 hours a day to avoid working 6 hours for someone else. And that's so true. And one of the keys, one thing to avoid in business is profit paralysis, or deal paralysis, or as I said in the recruiting business, we'd call it placement paralysis. And it was that case of when you are working on a deal, when you are working on a revenue event, and you're getting close to the conclusion. Well, what happens? Well, you tend to kind of check your email more frequently. You're looking at your phone for a message from whoever's, making that final decision. You start to get busy with busy stuff that really isn't moving you forward or closer to anything else. You find excuses to not start other things because the focus is, I'm closing this deal, I'm doing this. Well, you're not. You're reading the news. you're watching YouTube, and you're kind of banking on something to come through, and it really becomes a paralysis of action. And it's not the whole paralysis through analysis, none of that. This is that anticipation when there's a deal that's coming that's so close. I've seen it over and over again in the B2B space in particular, when the person just kind of shuts down their normal activity. And as an entrepreneur, your activity should always be, one of the activities that you should be doing constantly is prospecting for new clients and keeping that pipe full at different levels. Because any good salesperson will know that kind of rules of a third tend to come to play a lot, meaning whatever you think is going to come together, only about a third of it really will. So projections, when I used to see guys project their income and project the deals, in my old firm, and I would see these young guys talk about, and you just knew, when they gave you a number, then you're like, okay, 30% of that is probably realistic. And I think what I've seen from many, many people, unless you have workflow processes, unless you stick to controlling your time, plan your days and actually execute on your plan, especially during the closing parts or the latter parts of a deal, you will be susceptible to suffering from profit paralysis. And the problem is, if that deal doesn't come through, you're in a slump. You're in mentally, everything about you is invested in that one deal, it takes so much more energy to reverse that and then get into the process of, starting the sales funnel again. So you have to, it's a very, very fine balance. If you are in that state of mind and you're suffering from that profit paralysis, boy, oh, when it doesn't go your way, you're in a lot of pain, and it can take many weeks to kind of reverse out of it. And if you're doing, it depends on your cycle. Maybe your sales cycle's 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. But I find that if it's someone around like the 3 to 4 month period, it's very, very easy to blow a quarter based on profit paralysis. Very, very easy. So you have to keep it top of mind. And yes, you've got to water your deals, and you have to be meticulous at the end of a deal. You must absolutely be meticulous with every detail. Never assume anything about it. I've always, when I've lost deals and I analyzed what I did wrong, it generally was I was not meticulous with every detail. I went off the reservation. I didn't follow my usual workflow process. I didn't follow my usual checks and balance. And every time when I've done that, it's always ended in pain for me. And I see that with a lot of salespeople, a lot of entrepreneurs, is that you hold on to a deal, you think about it, it becomes consuming, and then you just suffer from that profit paralysis. And nothing's worse. So the way to get around that, guys, is to be very aware of it, to recognize that you're in it, to recognize that it's coming. Like, foreshadowing your stresses is really important for success. And I gave a quote to Forbes. Forbes. I'm a Coaches Council Forbes. I gave a quote about this to Forbes, which they printed about stress. And basically one of the key ways to avoid that is to foreshadow it. Like, we know in certain situations that we're going to go into a stressful situation, and we know how we're going to react to it. Now, for me, I know in stress, when I'm anxious, when I'm feeling excited or feeling depressed, not depressed, I'm not saying I'm never depressed, when I'm feeling down about something, I will go and eat. I just know it's coming. So I should prepare some carrots instead of a nice bit of chocolate or some other tasty treats. But that's just one superficial example. But if you know that you're going into a deal, and that you know that it's coming to the end of a deal, and maybe that cycle is several weeks, and you know that, from the past, that this is what you go through. You go through a bit of paralysis. You go through anxiety. You go through, you know what's coming. If you've been in business long enough, you know that's coming. So prepare yourself for it. It will change the way that you get results dramatically moving forward. If you foreshadow that, and if you prepare for it, and when you are in that situation, you immediately correct for it. You put in procedures to stop you going into it. Like, you plan your day, you know that, okay, this deal's coming to close. So what I have to do now for the next 2 weeks is concentrate on getting new prospects, getting the pipe full. And that becomes the concentration. That becomes the focus. Of course, you never, as I said, you've got to be meticulous about a deal, but sitting there at your desk thinking about it isn't being meticulous. That's just wasting time. And that is the definition of profit paralysis. So guys, when you're suffering from it, recognize it straight away, and then you've got to get out of it, because if that deal falls through and you're in that low energy, you're just screwed. You will waste weeks coming out of that. So don't wait for a deal to die or to succeed. Have that and keep the pipe full. I mean, we all know it, but just think how often that you've suffered from that, where it's coming so close and you can taste it, and then, whatever the outcome, if you get it, you kind of celebrate, you're kind of happy, and then you're thinking, okay, next client. Well, there's going to be a result either way. So start getting that pipe full. Start that process of engaging new prospects, of marketing, of advertising, of sales, of BD, whatever activity that you do. Start doing it. So guys, that's something that I used to suffer from quite a lot. And when I didn't recognize, or when I didn't acknowledge it, or maybe I acknowledged it, but I kind of hid it. I'm like, yeah. But when I didn't take action, I mean, that's what it always is, right? When I didn't take action to counter it, it really chewed up, usually at least kind of 3 weeks of my time. And then I knew that the stuff that I didn't do that week, I was going to get punished 3 months later, 4 months later, when the revenue wasn't coming in. You know it yourself, right? You know that the inactivity of today is the zero revenue of 3 months in the future, or whatever your cycle is. But for me, it generally was 3 months. So whatever I did today, I'd get paid in 3 months, or I wouldn't get money in 3 months. That's the way it is in certain businesses. Not now. I have a different business model, but that's when I suffered the most with profit paralysis. So I hope that helps. I hope that I'm sure you're aware of it. It's just really start to think about, do you suffer from it? Do you go into profit paralysis? And guys, I've given you some tips on how to get out of it, but it really is about being aware of it and then putting a strategy in place to counter it, and then taking action as soon as possible, as soon as that you are really aware of it. And there's, no one else can pull you out of it, especially as a solopreneur. If you're, in your room working, no one can pull you out of it except yourself. So it's really, really beneficial to be attuned to your processes, your feelings, the way that you respond to different stimuli, and then adjust for it. And just by foreshadowing that could literally save you months of inaction. And depending on your price point, that could be 5 figures. It could be 5 figures, could be 6 figures. So there you go. I hope that insight helps a little bit, or someone who's suffering from profit paralysis. It's something that I try to avoid as much as possible. I think with my new business models, it reduces that tremendously, because my sales cycle is much shorter. Generally, I find when you have the shorter sales cycle, you suffer less from it. It's those longer cycles and the higher ticket items that really, I must imagine that real estate agents might suffer that quite high. So anyway, cool. That's it for me. Thanks. Hey, Ryan, how are you, mate? Yeah, good one. I hope that helps, Ryan. I wonder if you've ever suffered from profit paralysis. Because it kind of sucks when it happens, especially when you know it's coming. Like, actually, I was thinking of this the other day. When I identified it and when I didn't take action, like, I knew it was happening and I still didn't take action because the mindset was just not there. And that's why also, daily mindset activities are just absolutely vital to keep you going. So cool. All right, I'm out of here. As I said, I may not be on Wednesday, Thursday to do a live. I've got a lot of stuff that I've got to get done. So I probably won't be coming on. So you might see me Thursday evening or Friday. All right. See you later, guys. Bye.